time of the week again. If you don't know, every Thursday at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I go live. I've said that now every single week of the year 2024. So I am happy that I have been able to at least said I would do that, and I've continued to do that. The problem is I have a million different video ideas, but it's just finding the time is very rough. But recently, within the last week, both my kids are born 6 days apart, so I did a joint birthday. And during that joint birthday, we had a lot of friends over, family, and my wife kept trying to, in a way, talk about Pokemon, or saying oh yeah, I've been doing the YouTube channel and all this, and she was trying to be, in a way, encouraging, but it goes to the title of this video. You either understand Pokemon or you don't. And I found this out in the past, and I already knew this, but my wife never really used to talk about it so much, but she was mentioning it a lot more. And I stopped talking about Pokemon a long time ago to my friends outside of this hobby, because I'm telling you, it's true, the title of this video. Either you understand this Pokemon hobby or you don't. It's like speaking a different language to people. And, my wife is very encouraging. She's very proud of me. And that word proud is a true word. She's very proud at what I've been able to do and what I've been able to accomplish in this hobby. And she's very proud of me. But man, I'm telling you, I do not like to talk about it outside of this hobby. You put me in a room with you guys at home watching this video, you put me in a Collecticon, you put me in an after party, after Collecticon at the bar, I will talk your ear off about Pokemon. Trust me, the same way I am on this screen is the same way I am in person. But the conversations are so different. And that's definitely on a more macro scale, to try to explain Pokemon outside of this hobby. But it's even the same in this hobby, but outside a hobby, when you try to discuss my wife's oh, well, show him some of the stuff, and I'm I'm not showing him stuff, because it's just, you can't explain it. There's so much money involved in this that people, they just don't understand. And I mean this, when you show them graded cards, and PSA, the cheapest you can grade cards right now is, right now with the June special, it's $13.99, but most of these cards are graded within the last year or two at that $15. Since the PSA backlog has gotten better, I've really graded a lot within that time. You got to keep in mind, there was a period of time after February 2020, I believe, when PSA shut the doors down, there was a small window of time where the cheapest to grade with PSA was $600. So a lot of my cards recently graded are all under $15. But when somebody walks in and you have 1,000 graded cards and they go, this is a lot, how much does it cost to grade a card? And you say $15. And then they go, you have $15,000 worth of Pokemon cards? And in your head, you're thinking, no, that's $15,000 in graded fees. The cards themselves are worth more than $0 a piece. But you don't even say it. It's just, you either understand Pokemon or you don't. But now, that is on the macro end. You can't explain what we're doing anymore. You can't explain it to your parents. Hopefully your loved one still understands, but you can't explain it to your friends that are not in Pokemon. You can't explain it to anybody. They just don't understand. And I don't know if that's an extremely good thing or an extremely bad thing. I think if you were to say, well, why is that a good thing? It's definitely a good thing, because it shows you just how much this hobby has potentially to grow. In the sense where if you have 100 of your friends, well, maybe most people don't have 100 friends, but let's say you have, you're throwing a party, you got 30 people at your party, and you're one out of those 30 people. So out of the 29 other people, if, let's just say, 3 or 4 of them eventually get into Pokemon in the future, that would be millions of people, worldwide. But even then, I think it's just so unlikely for that to happen. It's literally like speaking a different language. And I'm telling you, the only reason that it came up was because my wife is so proud of what I've been able to accomplish, but I just don't want to talk about it to anybody. And I downplay what I do in this hobby so drastically. Like, when I explain what I do, I peel it back just to, from the, if put it this way, if you were sitting at the table and you were hearing the way I explain it, you would be like, none of what PK is saying right now, I guess it's true in like the most basic sense, but nothing I was saying was true because people just can't relate. Now, you either understand Pokemon or you don't. That's on the macro. That's your outside life. That is the average person that exists. Now, getting into this hobby, there are still so many people that interact with Pokemon, which in daily, weekly, monthly, or sometimes yearly basis, and they're nowheres near like where we are with our engagement in this hobby. And even something, if I were to say Collecticon here, I would say that most people watching this video, when this video is all said and done, it'll get between 1,000 to 1,500 viewers. And out of those 1,000 to 1,500 viewers, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that all those people have heard of Collecticon. But even within the Pokemon hobby itself, people, the average person buying Pokemon, the average person walking into your Walmart or Target, they haven't even heard of something like Collecticon. So then it just shows you, like, well, what is Collecticon? Collecticon's mainly for the people that I would say are a little bit more engaged, because it is more on the buying, selling side. But even that, there's so few people that even know what a Collecticon is. I think a lot of the reason that a lot of people don't know what Collecticon is because it's not in all 50 states either. You know, if you're lucky, you'll get like 12 or 13 Collecticons a year. Most of them are taking place in Texas. You got Houston's going to have one. You got Dallas is going to have one. So you got 2 of them are going to be in one state. But most people don't even know like the biggest convention that exists in this hobby. But it's even almost the same way as in Pokemon when you talk about the National. The National is one of the biggest sports card trading shows in the entire country, and it's not, I shouldn't say it's one of, it is the number one largest sports card show and collectible show in the country. And even people within this hobby, deep down the rabbit hole, which is Pokemon, don't even know really what the National is, or where it's located, or, you know, how absolutely massive it is. And they would never even think to go to it because it is just like a more sports card focus. While I said there is a lot of TCG there, the National has definitely grown over the years, and they've definitely been much more accepting to TCGs. And you know the reason why they've been so much more accepting to TCGs, and one of the reasons that Pokemon is being more accepted, like just hobby-wide, and when I say hobby-wide, I'm talking outside of Pokemon, but hobby-wise as in the trading card hobby itself, whether that's sports, whether that's Pokemon, whether that's Magic, whether that's Yu-Gi-Oh, whether that's One Piece, or Flesh and Blood, or RIP, rest in peace, MetaZoo. Doesn't matter like what the trading card is, like Pokemon is definitely becoming way more respected, and the reason because of that is because of, one, demand, but number 2, because of the dollar amounts that is following Pokemon wherever Pokemon goes. Pokemon right now is the golden goose. There's no doubt about it. There's no shred of doubt. Pokemon is the golden goose when it comes to TCGs. Listen, I have a lot of favorite quotes in this hobby. Shout out to Dan Ketchmore Collectibles. Dan has one of my favorite quotes. Don't underestimate artists' ability to art. But recently in Dan's last live, he created, I don't know if he like inadvertently created this quote, but it's now one of my newer favorite quotes in this hobby is, you have made money, you are making money, and you will make money in Pokemon. And it's that simple. And Dan went off on his little rant where everybody talks about how, you know, complicated sometimes, and I love to talk about the nuances. I think the nuances are important, and I'm gonna, you know, talk about the nuances of this hobby all day, every day, and that's one of the things that will never change. If you do not like the nuanced conversation, this channel's not for you, because that conversation will never change. But when you pull it back, people watching this video, that saying is true. You have, You are and you will make money in this hobby, and you have this entire time. If you haven't been making money in this hobby, you're probably doing something wrong. And Dan was talking about it more in just like the 151 cents. He went on a big Japanese 151 tangent, but it's true. And I think a lot of people's fears in this hobby for a long time is there enough to go around for everybody? And that is a conversation that's been brought up on this channel. It's a conversation I've had before. It's just how much money is out there. Because one of the conversations that is had, and it's an important one, is every set that is released by Pokemon, there's more and more capital that needs to be infused into this hobby to just buy up that supply. So an example being Twilight Masquerade is the most recent set. Right before that was Temporal Forces. There was 1 million booster boxes of Temporal Forces printed. There was 1 million booster boxes of Twilight Masquerade, and to be honest with you, the numbers are probably higher than 1 million. And then, so even at $80 a box, which most people are paying way over $80 a box from distribution, that's 80 million that's required just to eat up the supply of that. And every collection box and every single Walmart and Target and Best Buy all have check lane blisters and 3-pack blisters and tins and ETBs, and all this money is required to be pumped into this hobby set after set, release after release, just to keep stuff relatively in a way scarce or in demand. Because if the money in going into Pokemon just dries up instantly and there's no more demand, modern product pulls back really, really fast. People will definitely start to have a race to the bottom, and then you'll start to see real extreme selling pressure on the market because everybody will just be dumping, trying to get whatever money they can out of Pokemon. And unfortunately, we saw a similar situation happen, which, again, I don't ever like to compare Pokemon to MetaZoo because it's not a one-to-one, and if anything, it's as drastically different as possible. But whatever, it's still an indication of what happened. What happened with MetaZoo? When MetaZoo filed for bankruptcy, you saw more sales of MetaZoo happen within that 1 week, 2 week timeline than you had in the last 5 months of MetaZoo, because people were just panic selling into the market. And luckily, there was a lot of people there still with money willing to buy up a lot of the supply as it hit the market. So because that's why you're able to have a ton of buying. But at the same time, shout out to Professor Oak. At the same time, even with all that, whatever buying demand was able to be there to keep some of this prices steady for a while, it just wasn't strong enough till eventually we saw booster boxes hit $10, $15 at MetaZoo. Is that possible in Pokemon? In my personal opinion, no, of course not. I do not personally believe it, but at least we have indication. But in order for the money to go into Pokemon, that is one thing. But the second part of that, and I've talked about it before, but it's the most important part, is when you have money coming in, you can't just have people continuously pumping money in and then trying to take money out. You can't just have this constant pump in, take money out. You have to have people willing to sit on product. You have to have people willing to not sell into the market. Because if you have that happen, that means that you have market confidence in Pokemon. And that's something we see happen all the time. People are not easily willing to sell their Pokemon positions. And the reason that they're not easily willing to sell their Pokemon position is because they have that one most important thing that I just mentioned: market confidence. The confidence that exists in this hobby right now today, at no point in my entire collecting journey, whether it's Pokemon, whether it was coins, whether it was currencies, whether it was movie posters, and whether it was Beanie Babies or Pogs or whatever. I don't even know if I collected anything before Pogs. I'm going to say probably not. That brings me back to like kindergarten or first grade, okay? That's how far Pogs brings me. But at no point during any of that period did I see such market confidence as I do constantly today. And, but then there's always there's weird outliers. This is a problem too. We live in the social media age. I saw a video the other day, and I don't know if it was a real video or if it was a stage video, but man, it looked pretty real. And let me know if you guys saw it. It was like an Instagram reel. I'm very, very good at not doom scrolling or death scrolling, meaning you're just... A lot of people do it on YouTube with YouTube Shorts. They'll just death scroll all day, or on Instagram, they just find themselves death scrolling all day. But I did death scroll probably like 2 or 3 nights ago on Instagram, and Instagram algorithm's pretty funny. Like, it does find you some stuff, and my Instagram algorithm is definitely like Pokemon related content. Oh, I don't ever death scroll on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, because all my X is just like poor Chinese factory workers just getting gobbled up by machinery. My algorithm for X is fucked. It is the most gruesome, disgusting thing in the world. But at least on Instagram, my algorithm is still Pokemon. I don't know why that happens. I just feel bad for every single Chinese factory worker that I've watched them just like getting mauled by machinery. It happens all the time, but that's all my like Twitter feed is. But anyways, that was a tangent. But on Instagram, I was death scrolling, and I came across a video of somebody walked into like their local LGS, and they had a huge seal pack collection, and their seal pack collection was actually like very, very well maintained. Like, they had every single pack in individual plastic sleeves. Like, they went to the next level. And then they had these big binders, and their big binders were all sealed packs. So it was like 4 packs per sleeve, and they had entire runs of pack art sets. So for like, so they had all the XY sets, so like XY base, Flash Fire, Furious Fits, stuff like that, Phantom Forces, and then every time you would flip the page, it would be like an entire art set. So like, I don't know why that's locked, but that was locked. But anyways, as they were flipping through, it was entire art sets. And they had it for all of X and Y. They had it for all of Sun and Moon. They had it for all of Sword and Shield. And then they also had a bunch of random booster boxes. A couple booster boxes of Fusion Strike. I think there was some Silver Tempest, Lost Origin, Evolving Skies. It was like, Evolving Skies, expensive booster box. All these sealed packs. And then just rows of sealed packs. Tons of evolutions. They must have opened up a bunch of products that had like individual evolutions packs in it. All this stuff. Very, very liquid. Very, very liquid. Like, if you have packs of Phantom Forces or like Flash Fire, all this stuff is super liquid. Booster boxes, one of the most liquid things in this hobby. And they walked into a local LGS, and the LGS owner offered them 65% TCG player prices. 65%. And the person that walked in there was very happy with that dollar amount. 65%. I can see if that dude walked in with a bunch of just junky junk slabs or some really, really like illiquid graded cards, or really, really illiquid, light play, heavy play, like non-graded cards. But he walked in with all sealed product, and the LGS owner was willing to offer him 65%, and the person took it. When it comes to sealed product in this hobby, please, and I beg of you, don't ever, I'm begging you, please listen to me. Don't ever take 65% for your sealed product just to dump it instantly. And the person on the other side of the counter, I just told you, they had this beautifully curated collection. Every single pack was individually sleeved. He had these big binders of all the art sets for like sealed packs and tons of booster boxes, and put so much time. I can't even imagine the amount of time they put into just curate this collection. And it was nice. It displayed beautifully. And then they walked in and they sold it all at once for 65%. But it brings up the question, well, why would somebody sell their collection at 65%? And I think it goes back to the title of this video. You either understand Pokemon or you don't. The average collector, they might just only know how to buy. And they just truly, truly do not know how to sell. And I've talked about a lot of things on this channel, and there's some things that I have to like hammer back home once in a while. And sometimes I just have to hammer home the simple fact of you need to learn how to sell in this hobby the same way as you know how to buy. Because if the day ever does come, you never want to be that guy walking into a local LGS and getting 65% TCG player prices for your sealed product to just dump instantly. That is such a silly, ridiculous thing. And you would think that somebody that has entire art sets of all XY sets and Sun and Moon sets and Sword and Shield and were able to acquire booster boxes, because even booster boxes are still niche in this hobby. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they are still niche in the sense that you have to know how to acquire booster boxes, because you would be surprised that the average person in this hobby only knows how to acquire product at big box retail, meaning they only know Target, they only know Walmart, they only know Best Buy, they only know GameStop. And none of those 4 stores I mentioned, yes, online you could pick up booster boxes. On the very, very random occasion, you could pick up a booster box at GameStop. But for the most part, those 4 stores never have booster boxes on the shelves. So most people in this hobby don't even really know the very, very simple nuances of picking up booster boxes. But this guy at least knew that, but he had no clue how to sell. And I see a video like that and it just brings pain to me. And it, like the commercial with the Indian, when he's looking at all the trash and he's standing in the middle of the landfill and a tear runs down his eye. When I was watching that video, a single tear rolled down my eye, like that Indian who just... That Indian watched his world being destroyed by people that just abuse that world. And then as I watched that video, my world is Pokemon. And I just watched as somebody just abused that world. And it's crazy. But, you know, and then it goes back to something. And one of the things I've talked about on this channel and I've really encouraged people to do. And, you know, it's been a while since I've encouraged it too. And I'll do it again. If you watching this video have never graded your own card, but you are deep enough down this rabbit hole that you must, and there's 0% chance that you don't at least have a small stack of cards to grade, do it. Do your first ever submission to PSA. Do it. Pull the band-aid off. It is not hard. A lot of what we do in this hobby is the illusion of difficulty. The illusion that selling is hard. The allergies. Oh yeah, shout out to Professor Oak. The illusion that selling is hard. The illusion that grading cards is hard. The illusion that pre-grading is hard. All that just comes with a very, very little bit of time and a very, very little bit of experience. Like, when you start to grade cards, to be honest with you, you only have to really send out one bulk submission, and then you'll already kind of get a feeling of what you need to be grading and what condition is like when you send cards, when you get that first sub back. Because your first sub you ever send the PSA will probably, the amount of time you'll take to analyze the grades on that very first ever submission will probably be more time than you will spend analyzing your next 50 submission, because your first submission will be most important, and you'll probably be at home and you'll have a ton of super modern stuff, and it's probably all going to grade 10s, and then you're going to probably have a couple WotC cards, and you're going to be like, this is a clean WotC card. WotC cards sell high in PSA 10s. Oh, let's see. And then you will get your 8s, and you will get your 6s, and you'll get your 9s, and you will very, very quickly start to understand condition rarity. That's why it's an illusion that it's tough to pre-grade your cards. And you know why? You will be forced to learn how to be a good pre-grader. Otherwise, you'll just get absolutely smoked sending PSA 8 and 9 contenders over and over and over again to PSA. It's a forced thing, and I promise you, your first submission, you will spend more time examining those grades than you will your next 50. It will, just because you'll spend so much time, and it'll be the best thing you've ever done for yourself. So if you've never done that, please, for the love of God, send your first ever PSA submission out. I don't care if as soon as this video is over, you log on to PSA and you send your first ever submission. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. What are you waiting for? You know you should be doing it. That's a very, but then it's even selling. If you've never sold on eBay, figure it out. List a couple cards. Send a couple to auction. Send a couple, buy it now. Figure out what sells. Get familiar with the selling aspect. Please don't do the cardinal sin that a lot of people do, is when you sell your first card, you drive to the post office, you stand in line like a smuck, and you pay whatever the postal service rates are at the counter, which would be preposterous. You're going to handwrite everything. Don't do that. When you sell your card, purchase your shipping label right there on eBay. Do 1 or 2 seals, and then go get yourself a thermal label printer. It's the very, very simple things that separate the people in this hobby. You would be amazed at how many times I buy cards on eBay still to this day, and I will get a random, like, eBay box or eBay envelope, and I can tell that this person's shipped this from the post office because it's all handwritten, and you could tell like a post office printed out label. It's very, very clear. Do not do any of this stuff. You really got to start to separate yourself in this hobby, and that's why you either understand Pokemon or you don't. The average person, the average seller, the average consumer of Pokemon, they just don't get most of this stuff. And that's fine. It's not a bad thing. But if you're engaging in Pokemon the way I believe you are engaging in Pokemon, you gotta go balls deep in this. You have to know all this. You have to get better. And this is the thing too, is the same way Pokemon is a freight train that keeps going down the track, you as somebody in this hobby, you need to be doing the same thing. You need to constantly just keep changing and adapting. Talking to you out there, Dan, Mr. Catch-em-all Collectibles, you should be selling on eBay Live. I know you should be selling on eBay Live. You know you should be selling on eBay Live. Sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. Sometimes you just got to be a little wild. You got to do crazy things. Sometimes it's just you know what you got to do, but you're not doing it. And it's the same thing in this hobby. You could be a, big dick swinging player like Catch-em-all Collectibles with, I don't know, he said some ridiculous amount of booster boxes he owns of 151. I don't even know. Dan, what did you say? Like thousands of boxes you're sitting on, which is the most preposterous number. Or you could be, some of us smaller fishes where we're just sitting on, instead of thousands of 151, maybe you're sitting on a case or two, or you still haven't waited. I feel like the day is coming when you definitely should be buying 151 soon. I need to take my own advice and pick up some 151. But I did something stupid the other day. I decided to take some money out and buy stocks with it. Like stocks? I was dumb. Individual stocks. Gotta get my priorities back together. Back to Pokemon. But it's just, I feel like so many people in this hobby, so many people watching these videos, they know exactly what they need to be doing. One of the things that I know I should be doing is I know I should be like doing the more grinding route and like going through some of my bulk. I'm getting so sloppy when it comes to just bulk. And I'm not talking about bulk like, what is this? Amanda Buzz reversed hollow. This isn't the bulk I'm talking about. I'm talking about like some decent bulk that I just haven't been burning through. And I know what I should be doing, and I'm just not doing it. So, in a way, I'm talking to a camera, but I might as well be talking to a mirror for some of this stuff. Let's see. PokeKid said, PK, stocks, oh my goodness. Dan said, fuck Japanese 151, long-term play versus OP9. People in their One Piece. Oh god, what did I read? Anyways, we're almost 29 minutes in. Guys, like I said, every week I've been going live. I'm going to do one more before I start to read the chat, before I start to read the questions. I'm going to do one more plead for everybody out there. If you guys are doing this hobby, you either understand Pokemon or you don't. One of the things you need to understand about Pokemon is Pokemon, you can only do it alone for so long in this hobby. You could only do this collecting journey for so long by yourself. I'm asking you and I'm begging you, please learn to start reaching out to other people in this hobby. And it could be as simple as join a Discord group. Please join the Rattle Discord. Join the Rattle Discord. You could join the Professor Oak Discord. You could start to like expand out there. Start to put yourself out there. You do not want to do this hobby alone. You know, watching Dan's last video earlier today, one of the things Dan talks about is he's picking up Japanese 151 booster boxes for a while. He's picking them up for like between $40 and $50. And at the same time, on the same day, you still have people on his eBay picking up booster boxes for $69.99, $79.99. Think about how ridiculous that statement is. That you, but like, that's the thing. You either understand Pokemon or not. You could either be that person there, and trust me, there are definitely plays to be made on eBay for some sealed product. We talked about P Football Pete. There's a lot of, especially English distribution, because we're in America, there's a lot of that where you could pick up sometimes on eBay for way cheaper, in fact, than you could if you actually had distribution yourself. You could pick it up sometimes cheaper on eBay, especially when you take in, if you have a reseller's permit, you're not paying taxes on that, and then you're probably not paying shipping because, you know, like a P Football Pete is free shipping on all this. There's been a lot of times recently in this hobby where the cheapest way to acquire sealed product is on eBay. Japanese 151 is not that like situation. You know, Dan has videos. Make yourself a Tenzo account. Like, do this stuff. And then if you're not like super actively engaged in this hobby or not like super deep down, you could still do stuff as simple as, you know, Japanese Pokemon Center lotteries and stuff, you know. There's been a lot of good products that came out within the last few years. You know, Dan's great video when he shows exactly how to make a Tenzo account. At the time, it's always funny because the video he was making his Tenzo account to acquire the product was just a Precious Collection box. And that was like when he was making his video, that was the product that was available for pre-order on Japanese Pokemon Center. And the Precious Collection box, the funny thing about that box was I've never, and I mean this, I've never found the person that said pre-ordering that on Japanese Pokemon Center was a bad idea. I've never met that person. Think about that. There's so much decisiveness that goes on in the Pokemon hobby, and I have never one single time heard anybody ever say that it was a bad idea to pre-order that, or more importantly, during that moment when people were pre-ordering the Japanese Precious Collection box on Japanese Pokemon Center, even during that moment, in the moment, there was not one single person, not one single YouTube channel that I ever ran across, one single person in this hobby who ever said that was a bad like thought or a bad play. And think about that, to have one product with zero decisiveness. But you could only do that, and that's the thing. You either understand Pokemon or you don't. And the problem is sometimes you just have to encourage people. Just like in my last video where I said sometimes I just want to shake people. But sometimes you just got to give them a little nudge and just give them the encouragement to, like, be willing to reach out, expand, to grow, to get better. You don't want... The funny thing about Pokemon, you think after all this time that, you know, people would have no other choice but to continue to grow in this hobby. What I found is the opposite. People, when they enter Pokemon, are just go, 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 guns blazing every time. Pew, 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 lasers, all kinds. It was just crazy. Everybody just super actively engaged. They're acquiring all the knowledge that they could possibly get until eventually they just start to fucking flatline. Like a beep, like a dead person, and they just go stagnant. They were just so excited, and then just this stagnation period. I don't know why that happens, but sometimes you just gotta push people. I made videos talking about this before. I think every person out there, they know exactly what they need to do, but yet they just don't do it. I don't know why. But, anyways... Nap90, good to see you, buddy. Number 1 mod in the game, Drew. Good to see you. Drew, I think I heard that, Drew, were you at Card Party, dude? If you were, that's very cool. I do want to go to the Card Party one time. I don't know. I didn't want to go to the card party. Well, one, it was Father's Day weekend. Number two, it worked out the same weekend I was having my kid's birthday party because we're doing the joint birthday. But I also felt weird going to the card party, and the reason why is because it's like a little bit of like a content creator event, and I just didn't want to go there and act and be weird, be like, because all my friends are content creators, and I didn't want to like just go there and be like, oh, I want to go to like the content creator part of it too, because that's where all my friends are going to be. It just felt so weird, and I was just like, I'm not going to put myself in a weird position like that. I don't know. Maybe I should go in the future, but I don't know. I just felt weird because I was just like, all my friends are content creators, and I just don't want to go there and feel like I'm tagging along to tag along. I don't know. It was a weird feeling. Maybe that's just something I need to get over. But Jimbo Slice says, officially summer, my dudes. Officially summer. Dude, it is officially hot. It's muggy. It is hot. It is gross. It is disgusting out. It is not fun. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it better? Would you rather have like cold weather, or would you rather have warm weather? I tell you, I'd much rather have warm weather because I hate like heat in my house in the wintertime. But I don't know. Summertime could be rough too. I feel like summer at least gives you the ability to go and travel and get out of the house and like experience stuff and doing that fun summer stuff. Let's see. PokeChef954, he says, also, I can confirm no one out there wants to talk about Pokemon outside the hobby. You should see me put that to test at work. I don't ever talk about Pokemon at work. If I don't even know like what I would say. There is no way that would be a good viral video, just trying to explain to somebody who doesn't understand Pokemon, like, what you do in Pokemon, and how much you spend in Pokemon, and how much you're selling in Pokemon, and how much time you spend in Pokemon. If you are not in this hobby, if you are not, they just don't get it. But then again, like, I'm sure that there's other people out there in my average life who are super, super passionate about something that I don't know that they're passionate about, because they're not going to talk to me about it. Because the same way as I feel it's talking to them about Pokemon, maybe they feel the same way as if they try to talk to me about something different. I just wouldn't understand. I know there's some people out there like super, super into music and follow certain artists, and the only reason I say that is because I see so many people like loving Taylor Swift. I could care less about Taylor Swift. Sorry for all the Swifties out there. I don't care. But like, there's people who love that, and I'm sure they could talk about that all the time. Or people follow just Hollywood drama news and stuff, and I just don't care about any of that stuff. So maybe like that's how people feel talking to me when they try to tell me about something that maybe they're passionate about, and I could just care less. I guess there could be a way to like make it so it works. Jake Smith said, question for PK. What are the top 3 strategies for misleading friends into the hobby? Jake Smith, that's a great question. Number 1, best way to mislead your friends to going into the hobby. Tell them that their childhood binders are worth $1 million. Every single one of your childhood friends probably had a Charizard First Edition in their binder. Every single one of your friends growing up, their Charizard First Edition is a PSA 10 contender. First thing you should do to mislead your friends, show them a recent sale for Charizard First Edition. Don't show them a recent sale. Try to show them one of the peak sales, like $240,000, $250,000. Show that to your friend and say, this was your childhood Charizard. You still have this in your binder growing at home. That's the first way to mislead your friends. Number 2, second best way to mislead your friends. Tell them if they open up modern product that they'll make money in this hobby. Show them sales of super modern chase cards in PSA 10 condition, and then tell them if they open up modern product, especially if they open up said modern product from big box retail, they are guaranteed to make money in this hobby. That is the second best way to mislead your friends. And the third best way to mislead your friends in this hobby is tell them that you should only... Oh, and the third best way to mislead your friends is to always tell them to sell their cards back to their local LGS after they've acquired said cards, opened said product, graded said card, then have them sell back to a local LGS. Those, Mr. Jake Smith, those are your 3 best ways to mislead your friends. Let's see. So Nicholas says, I do the Pokemon hobby, my brother does sports cards. We both compare them, and it's crazy how different they are in some aspects and how similar they are in some. Yeah, definitely. I mean, sports, one of the hardest things about sports is, one, you're dealing in, for the most part for sports, with the exception of very, very few cards, you're mainly dealing in, like, Ultra Chase, so serialized cards. In Pokemon, obviously, we don't deal with serialized cards. If we did in Pokemon, depending on how they rolled out serialized cards, we can see, I don't even know, we would see like borderline make-believe prices in this hobby, especially with how much Pokemon is printed, especially like if we saw a 1-of-1. I mean, look at what the Magic the Gathering 1-of-1 ring card sold for over $2 million. In Pokemon, the print runs for all Pokemon modern sets are 3, 4, 5x whatever Magic is printed. Pokemon is exponentially higher in like the amount that they're printing. For a 1-of-1 Pokemon card that come out, the chase factor of that would be so insurmountable, so damn near impossible. But especially if it was a fan favorite Pokemon like a 1-of-1 Charizard, you could easily be talking millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. I can see a 1-of-1 chase, like regular, just normal expansion Charizard, as long as it was a 1-of-1, going for $5-6 million easily. It's the most preposterous thing to say, because when you think about what you can buy in this hobby for $5 or $6 million, but the thing is you had a 1-of-1 chase Charizard in Pokemon from a main expansion, the chase factor would be so damn near impossible. And you got to keep in mind, the moderner, the better in this hobby. But I mean, the amount of hype that would surround a card like that too would be preposterous. Now, the thing about sports though is that there's so many of those serialized chases, where as long as Pokemon never like oversaturated that market, you would be okay. And I just pray that that day never comes in Pokemon. I never want to see, I know a lot of people do, they want to see that serialized card, they want to see that serialized chase in Pokemon. I hope that day never comes, because for me, I feel like the serialized chase is that artificial, like, pumping up of a hobby, and because of how strong Pokemon is, I think that would be a true sign of weakness for Pokemon. And I think that that would, if you were ever going to say, like, what is a good indicator for Pokemon for, like, the beginning of the end, and I think in Pokemon, serialized cards would have the makings to be the beginning of the end of, like, the Pokemon hype. Now, that could take an extremely long time for that to play out on a more macro scale, but I think if Pokemon does that 1-of-1 serialized chase, it's out of a need, and it's not out of a want. And I never want to see the point where Pokemon feels that they need to create that artificial chase just to keep this hobby going. So, I mean, as how strong Pokemon is right now, I don't see that being in the future, but would I roll it out in what is forever? No. I mean, Pokemon could do whatever they want at the end of the day, but I just hope they never do that, because again, I think it will be out of a need and not out of a want. And I don't think Pokemon's dumb enough to just do it out of a want, to just start doing serialized cards. Because they're not blind to how crazy that would be for this hobby. So, Namp90 says, I have friends that like Pokemon but are not into the TCG, and it's hard sometimes talking about cards. Some don't get it, or want to get it. Yeah, well, that's another thing too, like in the Pokemon hobby, is just to have the conversation about investing and stuff. Shout out to Mason Cardinal Gaming. I've asked Mason, I've literally asked him this exact question. Mason, do you have anybody who walks into your store and talks about talks about Pokemon, or talks about the Pokemon hobby the way we talk about Pokemon on this channel, or the way I go on rants? Do you ever have people walk in talking about the Pokemon hobby in the way that we do? And he said, no, never. And he even went one further. He said, and PK, if I ever did have somebody like you walk into my shop talking about Pokemon the way that you talk about Pokemon, I would probably record them because of how rare that is. So even something massive like an LGS, where a lot of people are walking in, to get somebody to walk in with like our sort of Pokemon brain is such a rare occurrence. That's why when I said we are in the niches of the niches, I truly mean that. But like, that's it. Like, that's the thing about this hobby. That's why it's so massive, and it's such a giant pool. Like, that's why people are extracting money out of this hobby daily, because it seems like a never-ending just pit of money. I don't know. It's weird. Brody Plays says, PK, have you ever been able to convince any of your friends to collect and or open packs? I've brought up some packs, like when we're upstairs in the living room, we're all drinking. Like, I've definitely brought up packs for my friends to open, but I've never encouraged anybody enough to like get into Pokemon to the point where they are now buying packs, they are now collecting. No, I've never got to that point. And I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know if that day ever comes. I've definitely gotten my wife to... No, my wife doesn't own anything. My wife's... Yeah. No, not even my wife. And she's the most supportive out of all of them, and she doesn't even... Like, she has, like, a few cards that I've, like, given her. Just, they're, like, dog Pokemon and stuff, because she likes dog. So, like, Growlithe and stuff. But no. Crazy. No one. Brody, not a single person, to answer your question. Not a single person have I ever been able to, like, convince into being in this hobby. Let's see. So, PokeChef954 said death scrolling, that's what it's called, yes. So, Market Scout Scraper said, what percent should be the minimum to accept for that caliber of sealed? I mean, if you're trying to like really dump that, really, when it comes to modern sealed, you're probably, I would recommend trying not to take anything less than 85%. And really, if you're going to shop around, depending on who you're selling for, trying your best to get closer to that 90% for sealed. But, I mean, 85 for sealed modern, I'd say that's probably like the minimum you want to take is 85%. There's a lot of people out there that pay 85% for sealed modern. A lot of people. You just got to know where to find those people. And there's some people that pay a little bit more. They'll pay up to 90% depending on what you have. You know, this is not a broad statement. Like, but if you have super hot, super liquid stuff, there's a lot of people out there willing to pay close to 90% for like instant liquidity for you, depending on what you're selling. And then, you know, and if you can't get that, then I recommend you just selling it yourself. But yeah, sealed is king, man. But that's the thing too, is I think maybe sometimes you either understand Pokemon or you don't. I think sometimes we get down the rabbit hole where just to say percentages like don't take less than 85% for sealed modern ever, and try to get closer to the 90 if you can. Even that saying might be tough if people don't have that built-in infrastructure of people willing to pay close to that. But 65%, that's a death sentence in this hobby. Death sentence. Like, that is 65. If you're taking 65%, you like, I think about a box like Fusion Strike or something. If you bought in the Fusion Strike for like 120 or something, you more or less evaporate all your profits you ever made on a product like that. More or less. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's crazy. Uh, so Karsten Top said, this is so true. I remember when I got into Pokemon, I sold a few cards for 60% to an LGS before I found your channel and started to do the learning. Well, that's the thing, too, is you got to remember is if you're walking into a place like that and you're selling cards for 60%, the only reason they're paying you 60% is because they're willing to put the work in to make that other 40%. That's the thing about this hobby. There's so much time and effort people are willing to put into this hobby, but at the end of the day, they're not willing to put that same work and effort into extracting money out of the hobby either. I don't know why that is. They're willing to do the hardest, most difficult way to acquire this stuff. Watching channels like this, creating the Tenzo account, creating all the things, spending hours researching the best websites and trusted sellers and waiting on and put in their alerts on their phone for Pokemon TCG drops, so when a certain website or a certain person drops a certain product, they could just scoop in, and they're more or less monitoring the market 24/7 when it comes to the buying and the amount of effort and work they put in to find that best of best deal out there. They'll do that, but the second it comes to selling, they're not even willing to put in even a fraction of the effort that they put in. They're not willing to do a fraction of that effort to get money out. I never really understood why that is, and maybe it's just like an ease factor. It's so much easier to buy than it is to sell, maybe. But I think that's a cop-out to say that. I don't know why it is. But then again, like, consignment service wouldn't work, except for tax implications. Tax implications are a real thing. So, Unknown J said, would you rather have a sealed Skyridge booster box or an equivalent value of Scarlet and Violet booster box cases? From simply a collector standpoint, give me the Skyridge booster box all day, every day. From a space management perspective, give me the Skyridge booster box all day, every day. From a strictly financial standpoint of what I think I could do the best return on my investment, meaning, what do I think is more likely? Do I think is more likely from an investment standpoint from a Skyridge booster box to go from $50,000 to $100,000 by, so what are we in, 2014? So from June 2014 to June, we'll just go 2 years in the future, to June 2026, so 2 years from now. Do I think that it's more likely for those Scarlet and Violet booster boxes? I'm going to just throw out a number, say $100 per booster box, so that's 500 booster boxes of Scarlet and Violet sets. Do I think it's more likely for those 500 booster boxes to double in the next 2 years, or do I think that Skyridge booster box is more likely to double? I think the Scarlet and Violet. So if I had to choose from a collector standpoint, Skyridge booster box all day. But from an investing standpoint, unfortunately, I'm taking the palette of Scarlet and Violet booster boxes. I don't even know where I would put 500. I mean, how many cases is that? 500 divided by 6 that's 83 cases. 83 cases of booster box is a lot of freaking booster boxes. I don't even know where I would put them at this point. I'm already drowning in all this stuff. To add 83 cases of product, I don't know. I'd run out of room. It would be rough. That's tough. That's like a wall of cases. 83. That's a lot of cases. 83 cases is a lot. I don't think you guys understand. Like, if you were going to go 83, if you went 10 high, so 10 cases high, that would be 8 across. That's like a wall. It's like a straight up wall. I mean, yeah, I don't know. So I hope I answered that question, Unknown J. Big G Collect says, you ever sneeze around your non-Pokemon friends and say, shout out to Professor Oak? I don't think I have, but that would be awesome. Pokey Steve, good to see you. Damn, good to see you. Catching up on 1.5 speed. Yeah, good. Pokey Kid said, PK, you ready for Jersey? I am. I'm doing a hybrid jersey thing. I'm going to sell stuff on Saturday. I really want to go to Charlotte. I talked to my wife again about going to Charlotte today. I keep just sprinkling in, and she told me if I go to Jersey and I come home with a lot of money, I could go to Charlotte. So I have to go to Jersey. I'm going to make a couple phone calls when it was a little too early right now. We're still about a month away. We're about actually exactly a month away. Time of recording this video, we're a month away from the Jersey Collecticon. I got to call I got to make a couple calls, make sure I have some seals locked in for Jersey, and I got to come home and I got to give my wife a couple $1,000s. This is going to be a very, very expensive trip for me just to get down to Charlotte, but I believe I can make it happen. So she said a dollar amount that I had to come home with, it like profit, and it wasn't that high. I was actually a little shocked by how low the amount is. So I'm trying to make Charlotte happen. I really, really want Charlotte to happen. Remember, the secret lies with Charlotte. Great movie. All right. PokeKid said PK with 80 cases, you could be Rudy 2.0, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. So PokeChef says PK, you gotta go to Charlotte, yes. Alright. Nicholas said PK, you got some extra booster box cases, just saying. Or he says you got some extra Lost Origin booster box cases. Nothing I have is extra. Extra is a very subjective term in this hobby. So Damn said, ooh, question. What do you think about a potential full art reverse holo card coming in the second part of Scarlet and Violet? I mean, we've already kind of seen with like we've already seen like the reverse holo spot for a lot of Scarlet and Violet already kind of been replaced with like a lot of the full art character cards. So I don't know. I feel like we've already seen that happen. So if anything, maybe would it be like a guarantee per pack? I don't see full art guaranteed cards coming. I think if that happens, then it really dilutes a lot of like full art cards that exist in this hobby. All right, guys, listen. I appreciate every single one of you. So after this live is over, I believe that CTR is still live for his 100K celebration. You guys should be redirected. I'd never actually done that before, but I think it should just automatically redirect in. But guys, listen, appreciate every single one of you. If you could do me a favor before you click off this video, hit that like button. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button. But as always, guys, appreciate every single one of you. And as always, I'll catch you on the next video.